Greetings from Bangkok, Thailand, and welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity in Diversity with Wanny Angerer in Moving Cultures. Our next guest is from Switzerland, and she is the number 91 of this series, and her name is Sixtine Crutchfield. Welcome, Sixtine. How are you?
I'm very well, Wanny. Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. And we are also looking forward to hear your stories about life, your journey, your career, and how all those activities are promoting unity and diversity. So who is Sixtine?
Wow, that's a bit of a schizophrenic question. I'm Swiss. I'm married an Australian. I have two children. Darren is my husband or ex-husband, and Patrick and Declan, who are now 25 and 22. My ex, Darren, lives in Australia, in Sydney, and I live in Geneva with the boys, and they've both graduated from university. One of them is like me, very creative, and he's finished his art school in Bournemouth. And the other one has my business sense as well, and he's in finance and economy here in Geneva. So we're a happy family. My background is history of art and history of the theater within the communication department, and I graduated from the University of Denver. And then I was lucky enough to get my first job with one of the very best galleries worldwide, which was Jan Krugier. It unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. And with Jan Krugier, I basically learned the trade. He was quite a character, and he knew everything about everything. You could never catch him out. Even later on, he sent me to Australia, and I got very familiar with Aboriginal art and the Aboriginal communities. I'm a very curious person, and I love to know everything what there is to know about a country. In fact, you and I met in Kenya, and we went to visit Kimera, and I was fascinated, and I've been in touch with you ever since, and that's typical my sort of the way I see the world, and the way I think we'll stay united through thick and thin and through all the crises. So anyway, that was my time with Mr. Krugier. Then I moved to Australia because I fell in love, basically, and I stayed there for a long time, for 10 years, more than 10 years, and worked a lot with the government. I worked on the radio as well. I had a French show on ABC radio, which was quite good fun. And then I came back to Switzerland in 97, and Monsieur Krugier said that I should come back and work for him, but I sort of wanted to do something else. I'd sort of also, my life had changed. So I worked for a bank, and it was my first time that I had any exposure to finance. And I was put immediately as an assistant to a client relationship manager. And so I met clients again from all over the world, because we had the group called quote unquote miscellaneous. So we had as much, we had Arab clients, we had Swedish clients, we had American clients, we had German and English clients. It was all mixed. And there I learned the trade. And I actually, to do that, I was trained by the bank in a school called Geneva Business School. So I'm an alumni from Geneva Business School. That was in 1999. And I've stayed in touch with the owners of the school, and it developed, it celebrated its 25th anniversary last year. And in order to do that, I created an MBA course for them on the art market, but on the business side of things. So it's really the entrepreneurs, the curators, people who deal with ultra high net worth clients who have collections, for example, bankers, for example, lawyers. They have to deal with people every day. They have to gain their trust. And there is no better way to gain someone's trust than to go through their passion. And art is a lot of people's passion, which is great to see. I think even during this crisis and the pandemic, culture and was very much needed to help us get through this. So, that I think is a good thing. In the meantime, I also I organized art fairs in Moscow and in Salzburg and in Baku in Azerbaijan, and also worked with a company who was building free ports. Free ports are like tax-free storage or bonded storage areas where the VAT on the objects inside, or anything, actually the goods stored inside, the VAT gets paid only when those goods are delivered in their final destination. And it can be rice and corn just as well as art and diamonds. I mean, it really encompasses everything. So it's used a lot by people who do business of transactions. For example, the auction houses, they get jewels from all over the world, or they get artworks from all over the world, or wine collections. They store them in a free port, and then the buyer at the end, the final client who will actually own those goods, will pay the VAT in their own country. So I worked for a company who developed that in Singapore and in Luxembourg. It already exists in Geneva. And now I'm back promoting this MBA, which I've created by myself. I've employed the professors. They're all top-notch people from the arts industry. We've got representatives from Deloitte, from the law firm Lalive, which is the law firm which created the Art Law Foundation in Geneva. You know, huge event managers like Lorenzo Rudolph from Ex Art Basel. So really top-notch people. A lot of people always ask me why I'm not teaching. I said, because there's much better people than me to teach. I just put everything together. I'm the coordinator. So
16.
yeah, that's in a nutshell.
You mentioned two key words. They are mentorship, and then you are talking about innovation and what we call cultural entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And we were talking behind cameras, and also you mentioned how important is to diversify. Let's talk about that.
Okay. I believe that one has to be curious. Anyone who will be successful in life, even though people can, of course, specialize, a doctor is a doctor, there's no doubt about that. But the more curious you are, the more likely you're able to find a connection with other people. And that's what we need today, is connecting. I think it's very important. And I think we need to bring down those barriers of diversity. I mean, diversity and cultural differences is a fantastic thing, but it shouldn't be a judgmental thing. Today we're talking about gender equality. Of course, color should not be an issue at all, ever. And so that's where I think it's important, if you're curious in the person that you're talking to, in the culture that you're embracing, you will be accepted and you'll gain trust. And trust is also a big part of healthy communication.
Yeah, the creative sector has been separated for a very long time from business and management.
Yeah.
Would you talk to us a little bit about this MBA on this specific topic, practically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's happening is that as people and entrepreneurs and businessmen, people who are quote unquote money hungry, and there's nothing wrong with being money hungry as long as it's used in the right way. I think the art world has been attractive because it's been buoyant. It's been going, I mean, as far as the market is concerned, the prices have been on the rise for more than 20 years now. So it is an attractive thing, but also it's very opaque, because obviously the art market requires confidentiality. Not everybody wants to know that you've got this or that art collection or this or that famous artwork, because it's something that is sought after, so it can be dangerous. I mean, that's also one of the reasons that people store them in places like free ports. It's because they're worried to have them at home, because you can be kidnapped, you can be, aggressed with it. So I think to know about the business will also help, because obviously people know about buying commodities and trading on the internet, and banks do it like they've been doing it for years and years. But art is something that also involves emotion. And of course, there's criminality. Of course, there's people who copy artworks. Of course, there's fakes. Of course, there's theft and all of that. But I think the more people know, and now with also the business in general becoming more and more transparent, there is entities like the Art Loss Register, where you can register a stolen work and then it's found. Like today, if you steal a Picasso, you're very unlikely to be able to sell it again, because they're registered everywhere. Same with diamonds, same with, precious things. So knowing about all these things in an MBA course, I think will secure people and will open up the market. And it will also open opportunities for younger artists who can't access this because of lack of knowledge.
What can you share with us on your experience working with Indigenous groups during your time living in Australia, and how your creative process, I guess, changed into a different direction?
Yeah, I have to say it's been one of the most rewarding times of any of the businesses or any of the activities that I've done. The first thing was to gain their trust. Obviously, I'm white-skinned, and you know, there is this colonial history in Australia, which was not very favorable to the Indigenous people initially. I know that there's big efforts being done in that respect, but I think the first thing again is communication, and healthy communication comes through trust. So perhaps because I even though I was white, I wasn't Australian, that sort of broke barriers a bit because I'm a foreigner or a minority in Australia as well. But at the end of the day, if you bring down the barriers, and I'm one who, you know, like, I don't look at the color, I'm just willing to learn. And the Aboriginal people taught me so much. They don't have a sense of possession. That's number one. So, you know, somebody who sells an artwork will bring all the proceeds back to the community, will build a school. Clifford Possum built a hospital in Alice Springs. I mean, there are very valid examples, which is something quite unknown in my culture. In my culture, you own your things and you hold them, and you don't want them to, you know, you don't share that much. In the Aboriginal culture, it's completely different. And also I learned to respect, I suppose, to respect my surroundings and my environment. Indigenous people in general, not just in Australia, you know, really truly believe they come from the earth and they go back to the earth. So we respect that, and it makes sense. I mean, white people, we look after our homes, but Indigenous communities tend to look after their world, which is obviously in the bigger picture, and especially now with climate change, you know, we somehow wish we'd done that. Everybody had done that a little bit better in the past. So, you know, when in French we call Indigenous people and their culture primitive, I learned that that is so far from the reality that it, you know, like, we have so much to learn. And that was probably what I took away the most. And I've changed my way of behaving after having spent a lot of time with them.
We're talking now about art and empowerment of a community, and how the creative process goes back to the consumer. And then, as you mentioned, after, the money is being used in order to get better education and better health facilities and so on. How do you combine that vision with this MBA marketing program that you're planning to establish?
That's a super question. Geneva Business School actually is very aware. We've been winning awards for a long time, or several times in a row, about being eco-friendly and quite good at, you know, recycling and all of that. And in Switzerland, you get awards for that. So they're very conscious, and all our teachers, actually our logo for the students is that we train responsible leaders. So that goes across the board, and I think we're sort of more or less gender equal as well, which is a good thing. In the MBA, in respect to the art world, I think there's a lot to be discussed still. Artists have been influenced by loads of things, and by Indigenous people as well. Picasso and all that, we all know that they, you know, Cubism came from African art. There's no doubt about that. So I think that all needs to be taught within a historical point of view. As far as the future is concerned, I think the products, and now it's becoming very digital, and there's a lot of talk about digital not being all that environmentally friendly because of the batteries and the energy that the servers use to store this. Now, I'm no expert in this, of course, but I think you need to go through these extremes and then to sort of understand it, and then come back probably a little bit. But I mean, art in a long artists have been recycling products for a long, long time. So I don't think that sustainability is such an issue within the art world, but it is true that with this new digital, we're going to have to look into it a little bit more. And all that new technology will be covered in the MBA, because that's what it is now. It's moving so fast. In fact, whatever we teach people in February, we open in February, whatever will be taught in February will probably be obsolete the following year, only because it's going so fast. But at least we'll know, we'll teach our students how, where to look and how to find whatever they're looking for in their research or whatever.
Yeah, practically we are into the impermanence concept, that everything is changing, and it's actually always been like that. But due to the health crisis, people is more aware of it because they have felt that in a crash way. Everything happens suddenly, and people was with no plan. They were a little bit emotionally devastated. And now talking about emotional state, how do you see the role of the creative arts into providing a safe space and a better opportunities to everybody to improve their health, their mental health?
Yeah. There we're coming into what you and I know well. It's this art therapy concept, which of course works. It's proven. You and I met in the circumstance of the Red Pencil International, which is still going. But I think with crises now happening, like Afghanistan, which I find absolutely appalling what's going on there. I'm not talking politically. I don't want to take sides in any way. But these, we're talking human beings and people being severely violated and aggressed. I think it's really bad. That being said, I think art and anything that is soothing, whether you listen to music or whether you paint or whether you express your inner anguish through, storytelling, cloth, whatever, is something that has always been happening. But with art therapy or even what we call in French art brut, which is people who were in mental institutions. They also produced art, and it's a proven. When you're into your creative process, whatever it may be, it can be dance or whatever. You're all of a sudden you can shut out the rest of the world, which also means you can shut out the anguish, which also means you can shut out all the, the negativity that might be aggressing you around you. And that if anybody can learn that, it's very useful. Actors do it all the time. They can shut themselves within the red line. And I think it's a great gift, but it can be taught and it can be learned. So we're not going to do it so much with the MBA program, but one of the things which is going to be extracurricular is exactly that. I will organize workshops with professionals in Geneva, and those students who want to try it will be able to participate in those workshops outside of the school environment.
Sixtine, talk to me about your family background and your ancestors. How do they build the persona you are today?
So my father is Swiss from a French mother, and my grandmother was quite a famous seamstress. And between the two wars, she moved to Paris to work for Chanel. And then at the same time, simultaneously, my father's father was from an enamelist. Like in Switzerland, there's a lot of watchmakers. And in the beginning of the 19th century and also throughout the 18th century and early 20th century, the watches were, kept in their pockets, and you had like a little enamel painting. Could also be pornographic, by the way, but they had these little enamel pictures. And that's what my grandfather made, these little miniatures. And he moved to Paris again between the two wars, and that's how they met. And so my father's French, but my grandmother was French Basque. So I've got this Basque French Swiss mix on my dad's side. And then my mother was German, completely German. But I get some of my, I suppose, feminist sort of strong side and also creative side, because my great-great-grandmother was an actress on the stage, and she was also a feminist in her day, and she also held what they called salons, where people like Richard Wagner would go and talk, and Gerhard Grosch and lots of artists and sort of creative people met. So I think it's sort of in the family. And
Yes.
we say that it passes down generations. So you might have some that aren't creative or artistic at all, and then it comes back with a vengeance. So I think I'm the vengeance bit.
And then one of your sons as well.
Yeah. Yes, he's definitely, yeah, he's very cool.
16. We are in a time in life that we start to understand that everything is very fragile. You know, that everything we've been trying to reach sometimes doesn't necessarily match what our mind and our soul is searching. What is your point of view on the spiritual sense of the arts?
Good question. I think it's very much needed now. Everything is going so fast, but we've also got a lot of issues in our society at the moment, and I think it's global. And I was talking to a Russian artist called George Puzenkov last week, and he was talking about communist capitalism and that it was very scary. And I said, what do you mean? You know, like, you come from the, I mean, he's old enough that he knows about the communist Russia and and he said, when we were young, we were aspiring to leave, whether you went through Israel because you were Jewish, or whether you left during a sports event or a tour like Nureyev did. And he said, those who stayed behind in Russia, we were all sort of hoping, because we knew that out there somewhere, there was something better. They didn't know if it was better, probably wasn't better, but they knew that they could go somewhere. He says, today, where do you escape to? There's nothing. So we need to fix the world we're in, because it's global at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened during the pandemic with all these artists being super creative digitally, and as you said, it went very fast. It was like a crash course in this new technology, which was previously sort of reserved for the geeks and the scientists. It's now hit everyone. And we need to consolidate that. It's not going to go away, because even if the world gets better health-wise, it'll still, we've now adopted this new means of communication and creativity. So I think it's going to stay. It'll improve probably. But, and I'm hoping that wherever there's war, they don't destroy their history like we've seen in past wars where the heritage was completely destroyed. And in a way, thank God for colonies, I can say, because now we're able to restitute what was saved at the time, whereas it seems like today everything gets destroyed. I don't know what will be restituted in the future. So that's what I'm hoping, is that people come to grips that our culture, no matter which culture, is important and we need to preserve it. And maybe digitally that will be able to happen.
Take place. 16, we are almost reaching the 30 minutes of our conversation, and I have a video of you taking a walk in one of the galleries. Let me share this one with the public. Okay, so see.
I'd just like to thank Swiss Dragon, who've been supporting me all along, for their videos.
Fantastic. Also, we have Swiss Dragons who have been supporting you through your journey on documentation. Who are
Yes.
they, 16?
Swiss Dragons is run by a gentleman called Alexander Orlov. He lives and grew up in Switzerland, but he's of a Russian father and I think an Egyptian mother. And he does these videos and he's been supporting me, and I'm very grateful also throughout the promotion of the MBA program. Initially, Swiss Dragons was created to promote or assist Chinese businessmen come and settle in Europe and start their businesses in Europe. So that was the initial, but then he continues. He's a passionate videoist and he does some very nice things. And the gallery where I was is a private, I curated this private collection exhibition of Georgian art, Georgian, not as in American Georgia, but in ex-Russia. Yeah. And some beautiful art there, really nice. You saw some portraits of Queen Tamara, and there was a very nice pastel of Serebriakova, who's actually Russian. But that was a very, very nice exhibition in Geneva, I have to say.
Yeah, you practically also touch on a very important point. There is collaborations.
Yes.
Thanks to collaborations, things can move smoothly, and also we can enrich our work and our points of view. 16, could you please send a message to the new generations and to society regarding unity, diversity, and inclusion to close this conversation of today?
I would love to, if I'm very honored to do so. I don't know that I'm the right person or philosopher, but to the younger generation, please, please, please trust yourself. You can't love others if you don't love yourself first. So, trust yourself. You're all capable of doing great things, and the world actually needs now some innovation, some good ideas, but most of all, peace and love. So practice that as much as you can.
16, sending you a big, big hug all the way from Thailand. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to have been with you, Wanny, today.
The same, 16. Take care and looking forward to see you in the near future.
Absolutely.
All the success.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.